Hey guys, Sam here with Garage Hammer Tactics, and today we're going to look at a faction focus of Demons of the Ruinstorm. Okay, particularly we're going to pay most attention to the Creeping Scourge Etheric Dominion. The reason being is this is the one that I play. I haven't had really any hands-on with the other Etheric Dominions, so I would like to try Resplendent Terror, where it's a mix of all the gods. Okay, though even if you don't play Creeping Scourge, hey, I'm sure there will still be points that I bring out that are pertinent to the other etheric dominions, as demons all have one overriding sort of point and play style. Okay, so before we go into the various units I think are best suited for Creeping Scourge, and before we go into the etheric dominion special rules, I just want to have a slight, not rant, that's the wrong word, mention on base sizes. So there are some people on the internet who like to say that the base sizes are verbatim, we must stick to them rigidly. However, I don't think this is the way it's intended. I mean, reading the rules or reading the actual section in Book 8, it clearly states it's used as a guideline. So I think the rule of don't be a tit applies here. You know, if you're rocking a demon lord, you know, it needs to be based and modelled appropriately. You can't use Gutrot Spume, for example, from the AOS kit as a demon chaos lord. Hey, he's on a 40mm base, I think, and you know, he's the size of a space marine. It's just not going to fly. However, you know, if you're using greater demon beasts, I think they could be perfectly represented by demon princes, and I do in fact do this myself. So Nurgle Demon Princes in my case, because, you know, we're all about Nurgle here. It is my favourite Chaos God. So, Demons of Ruinstorm. Okay, what do we get for the entire army? Well, we all have a 5+ invuln save, so every single model in a Demon's army has a 5+ invulnerable save, which is really nice. Okay, we also cause fear. Okay, and we are in fact immune to fear ourselves. We also pass any pinning, fear, and regroup tests, and we cannot choose to fail morale check due to our weapons are useless rule. Yeah, mixed bag. I don't really tend to find that our weapons are useless comes up very often, especially the demons, but we'll cover that when we go into the war gear. Further to that, okay, when we do fail a morale check, okay, we don't fall back. We immediately perils of the war, and we have our own unique perils table. Okay, so on a roll on a d6, much like the perils in the psychic phase, and we have table that we follow. So cross-tied flux is the roll of a 1, and the model/unit must reduce its weapon skill, ballistic skill to 1, and initiative to 1 to the end of the control player's next turn. Okay, further to that, the unit/model suffers D3 automatic wounds with no saves of any kind allowed, including feel no pain rolls. In addition, if this result occurs during the psychic phase, then that phase ends immediately, and all remaining warp charges are discarded. Okay, so that's a big sort of negative to the way our army works. We don't want to roll a 1 on the perils table. Yeah, 2 to 5 is a bit more evened out. The unit/model will suffer D3 automatic wounds with no saves of any kind down. This also includes feel no pain. In addition, if this result occurs during the psychic phase, then roll D3 + 1, and both players gain a number of warp charges equal to a result. Hey, so yeah, it does do a little bit of damage, D3 wounds. However, there's a chance you could get some warp charges back if you're in the psychic phase, which is always good because the army tends to sort of revolve around psychic, especially the Creeping Scourge and a few of the others. Hey, and then we have a 6, which is what you always want to fish for because it is awesome. Hey, Warp Bloom. The model/unit increases its weapon skill, ballistic skill, and initiative by +1 to the end of control player's next turn. In addition, if the result occurs during the psychic phase, then roll a d3. The Demons of Ruinstorm player gets a number of warp charges equal to that result. Hey, yeah, so like I said, it's an awesome result on the perils table because all of a sudden your slow moving army that's majority initiative 4 is now initiative 5, and then we also get we become weapon skill 5 and ballistic skill not so much because we are not really a shooting army. Okay, and that's our perils table. Next up we have how the deployment works. Okay, and we get what's known as rift markers. Now rift markers are a bit of a controversy, especially on the internet, because of the way they work. Basically, you have 3 portals in which you deploy out of. You can deploy from like you would from reserves, except you can come in from turn 1, and your reserve roll is not affected by any modifiers. So you're always coming in on 3. It doesn't matter if they're Alpha Legion and they have all those stackable modifiers. You're always coming in on 3s, which is really good. However, the problem is that the warp portals can be completely negated by smart placement of objectives and deployment and your opponent's deployment. Okay, so it's a little bit tricky. Most people tend to, heresy is a very narrative community, so most people tend to just chill out on that side, and usually you can get down at least one warp rift portal. Okay, sort of portals that you tend to see. A lot of people, especially using Creeping Scourge, like to use feculent null and this is a good representation, but it needs to be the right size. So roughly a 5-inch circle, so a large blast template. Yeah, so the bonuses from the warp rift marker are that within all demons, friend and foe, within 6 inches of a warp rift marker can re-roll failed or vulnerable saves. So especially for that first turn when you know you can't charge, if you deploy within 6 inches around your warp rift marker, you've got a re-rollable 5-up invuln, which is really strong. Okay, also further to that, it's impassable terrain, so it can be good to stop key units from getting into certain positions around the board. But that doesn't usually tend to come up, because if a Warp Rift Master is down, it means that there are demons probably in front of it. Okay, the downsides are, though, is it needs to be, or it cannot be placed, 12 inches away from any objective, any enemy unit, or any other Warp Rift marker. So that and then 6 inches from any table edge. So if you think about it, if you've ever played Daemons of Ruinstorm, you can tell, or you know yourself, how that means placing those portals can become very tricky, especially when it's a high objective game. Some of them require 5 or even indeed in some cases 6 objectives, which means you're really limited to sort of 1 or 2 portals. And if your opponent's smart and knows this, then they can really sort of limit you to going into one position and build their army around that. So that is a massive weakness with our army. Further to that, Demons of the Ruinstorm get the Tides of Madness special rule. Hey, and it means that all models of this special rule are directly affected by shifting tides of the warp and have their base statistics modified based on the current game turn, as shown on the table below. So on turns 1 to 2, we get +1 strength, +1 toughness. Hey, on turns 3 to 4, we're at our original strength and original toughness. Okay, turns 5 to 6, we're on -1 strength and -1 toughness, and turns 7 onwards, we're at -2 strength and -2 toughness. Now, this is a really unique thing that's specific to our army. Okay, the +1 strength, +1 toughness in the first 2 turns of the game where you're not likely to get in combat is really strong. It means even your basic infantry are unbelievably tough. The turn 3 to 4, where the majority of the fighting happens, you just have to rely on your base toughness, but it's not too, because demons as a rule tend to be quite resilient, at least marine level toughness. 5 to 6 is when you start to see your toughness sort of fade away, and it can be devastating if done correctly by your opponent. If they know this is coming, they'll hold off those key charges until you're weaker, and then countercharge you, and you can see your plan unravel from there. However, the turn 7 where you're -2 strength and -2 toughness doesn't tend to turn up, because I've never played, I don't think, a game of heresy that's lasted to turn 7 in the 5 years I've been playing. But yeah, it is there. So in some missions it can happen, but I wouldn't worry too much about that. Okay, next up we're going to talk about the Ammnations of Horror, and these are essentially the upgrades that you can give to all your demons. So those of you who are long in the tooth and used to play Tyranids way back in the day, we're talking 2004 to 2006, like 4th edition era, will sort of recognise this table, as you used to be able to buy your base Tyranids and upgrade them with certain gear to specialise them in a certain way, and that is the same here. You can have a demon army that have the exact same models and have a completely different playstyle due to the upgrades that have been given due to the Ammnations of Horror. And we'll go through those one at a time. However, I won't do this for the whole... I will do it for all the Ammnations of Horror, but I won't do it for all the units, because this video will end up being 2 hours long, and some people don't want to listen to 2-hour long video. Especially, as I said, I'm only going to focus on Creeping Scourge, so I will only focus on the units that I think are good for Creeping Scourge. But we'll talk about all the Ammnations of Horror, and you can decide yourself whether or not you think it would be worth it in your nurgle-based army. Okay, so first up we have the Lord of Sorcery, and it is a 25-point upgrade that gives you a single level of mastery to your unit. It can only be taken by Demon Lords, Chosen, and Greater Demons. Okay, so it's really only an HQ thing. However, you can pay multiple points, and you can take additional levels of mastery, but only a Demon Lord can take more than 2, I believe. And so your Chaos Demon Lord can then essentially be up to 6 levels of mastery. Yeah, it's pricey, But if you want to guarantee that you've got a full table, i.e. biomancy, then that's the way to do it, and it is really strong. Just with the wording on that though, some people argue that because it says they may be selected rather than chosen, rather than rolled for, that means that they can just choose their powers, and therefore they don't buy their 6 levels of mastery. Okay, it's waiting for an FAQ, but as we know at this point, Forge World are sort of loose and fast with their FAQs for the Horus heresy. Okay, there hasn't been an FAQ since February 2019. So until there is one, it's sort of talk to your opponent, see what you think. I personally think it's not intended that way, but rules as written, I couldn't argue against it. I won't do it that way because I don't think it's in the spirit of the game, but I have seen people do it before. So it is what it is. Hey, next up we have Demon Wings. Okay, and this can be taken by anything and any unit, and the unit's type is changed from infantry to jump pack infantry or jump pack monstrous creature. Okay, and that's good. It means, re-rolling charges, Hammer of Wrath, etc. if you don't use your jump pack. Okay, and it means you change to 12 inches. It's really good on lesser demons. I've seen it used before, and it makes especially Creeping Scourge, which is a relatively slow army, makes them quite fast. So it's a good all-round Dominion. However, it has to be bought for the whole unit, and we're looking at a 5-point upgrade or potentially a 25-point upgrade depending on the size of the model or the models being used, or the type of unit being used. Okay, next up we have Crushing Claws, which is a staple of Daemons of Ruinstorm, and you'll see this one everywhere. I take it on almost everything that isn't a monstrous creature. Okay, and it's the unit gains the rending special rule on all close combat attacks it makes. Yeah, so it's your only decent reliable source of AP2. Okay, really good on lessers, really good on demon beasts, and those of you who will have seen some of the content we've put out, yeah, it goes on everything, and it's really useful. Hey, the next one up is Flensing Talons, and it gives the unit the Shred special rule and all close combat attacks it's make. Another really good one. It means that your lessers, if you take a blob of 20 lessers and you give them Crushing Claws, and you give them Flensing Talons, and then you give them one other upgrade, they come to nearly 500 points for a 20-man unit. But that 20-man unit is going to be an absolute beast in combat. And I'd really recommend combining the two together, because you're really fishing for those 6s for AP2. Especially when you fight against Custodes or some of the specialist units from the Legiones Astartes army list. So you're really fishing for that rending. So I think Flensing Talons works really well with Crushing Claws. Another one, moving down, we have Sundering Fangs. Any unit, any model in the unit may choose to make a single attack during the fight phase in initiative step 1. Instead of the standard number of attacks, a single attack is made twice the normal strength of that model and gains the Sunder special rule. Hey, so it's a good, reliable form of anti-armor that I've never seen it used, and I've never used it myself. I think weight of attacks with rending over giving yourself Tank Hunter and making you strength 8 for the most part, unless you were lucky to get into combat on turn 2. I don't think it's personally. I don't think it's worth it for how you need to play this army. Next one we have is Miasma of Rot. Now this is definitely a staple of a Creeping Scourge, as Creeping Scourge is the only Dominion, Etheric Dominion that can take it, apart from Resplendent Terror, because Resplendent Terror can take all the different Ammnations. And it means that any unit locked in combat with this unit with this Ammnation reduces its toughness by -1, or if it has an armor value, instead of a toughness characteristic, reduce the armor value of all facings by -1 while it remains locked in combat. Its effect is not cumulative and is applied only once regardless of the number of units with the Ammnation in contact with a given unit. In addition, any reduction to a unit's toughness is imposed does not affect the victim's instant death threshold. Yeah, it's really strong, basically rad grenades across your whole army. And something I should have pointed out before, if you do take a Etheric Dominion, you have to take the specific Ammnation of Horror on any unit that you take with multiple models. So single models like a Demon Chaos Lord doesn't have to take Miasma of Rot, but your Lessers, your Swarms, your Demon Beasts all have to take Miasma of Rot as one of their Ammnations. But it's really strong. It's rad grenades and then some, because it even affects vehicles. Imagine you're fighting against Leviathan Dread with front armor of 12. all of a sudden is going to make it easier for you to get those rending hits off. Hey, next up we have brass collars. Hey, this doesn't really apply to Creeping Scourge. It is the corn one. Excuse, I can't remember the name. And it gives you Adamantium Will special rule and armor save 3+. Yeah, it's cheaper than the universal 3+ armor save one that demons get. But we'll go in that a little bit later. Hey, Stupefying Musk, and this is the Slanesh Etheric Dominion, I believe. Any unit charged by or locked in combat with a unit with this emanation must take a morale check at the beginning of the fight subphase. If the check is failed, that unit must reduce its initiative by 1 for the duration of the subphase. Okay, again, doesn't really apply to Etheric Dominion, to our Creeping Scourge Etheric Dominion. Okay, and then we have Warp Scions, and this makes your units Psychers. Again, it's for the Tzinch or Zinch Etheric Dominion, so it doesn't really apply to us. Okay, so we have Corrosive Vomit. Now this does sound like a nurgly one. For every 3 models in the unit, rounding up, 1 model may attack during the shooting phase and use the following weapons profile. And the range of line of sight may be measured from the model of the unit. But if multiple attacks are made in a single shooting phase, they must each be measured from each separate model. The models chosen to perform an attack may be changed in each shooting phase. So if you've got a blob of 20 lessers, every 3 of them can fire, and it's a template, strength user, AP5, assault 1, soul blaze. Hey, so it's not great, but it's not terrible. Hey, I wouldn't tend to use it on my lessers. I have used it on my greater demon beast for some strength 8, AP5 template, and basically because I have Mammon the Transfigured as a model, I like to use that because he's got a giant sort of hose pipe coming out of his arm. I think this represents it quite well. Hey, now we have Rift Barb, and Rift Barb's a really good shooting attack. Some people don't like it, some people say it's not great, but I think it's, with everything with demons, it's weight of dice rather than single shots. And it's a single model in the unit may attack during the shooting phase using the following weapons profile. And it's strength, range 12, strength user +2, AP3, assault 1, armor bane. So it's another form of anti-tank for our army. So if you're putting on the big guys, like a Behemoth or a Shrike, you're looking at strength 9 with armor bane. You know, it's nothing to sniff at. Okay, and you're not going to kill vehicles outright, but you can force the issue. You can get immobilized. You can force them to snap shoot, and you can all around be a pain to those sort of units. And everyone knows tanks are key units in most people's armies because they put out the hurt. Okay, next up we have Molten Blood. Okay, whenever a model with this unit, with this special rule suffers an unsaved wound, any enemy units locked in combat suffer a single strength user AP dash hit. Hey, not really the strongest one. I tend not to take this one on anything. But I do believe, I think Korvax's Art of Blight has it, which is our demon special character, has it as standard, but it's never come up and it's not a game-changing emanation. Hey, down below that we have Horned Crown. Grants the unit the Hammer of Rash special rule, and if the unit already had this rule, then the number of hits inflicted is increased from 1 to D3. Roll once per unit to determine the number of hits inflicted per model. Hey, so if you want to get multiple Hammer of Wraths, this is good combined with Demonic Wings, because you could get D3 Hammer of Wraths, and it could potentially mean that, you know, if you've got a blob of 15 lessers, all 15 of them could have 3 Hammer of Wrath hits before they even do their attacks. And with weight of dice, this is how you play demons. You need to overwhelm your opponent with dice rolls. Hey, following on from that, we have Warp Scaled Hide. A unit with this emanation increases its armor save to 3+. Hey, this one's slightly pricier than the brass collars. I don't tend to use it because we have a really good invulnerable save, especially Creeping Scourge, because we get Feel No Pain. But we'll touch up a bit on that when we go into the actual Creeping Scourge bonuses that we get. Next up, we have Quicksilver Speed. The unit gains the Fleet and Move Through Cover special rules. Really strong for demons, as it's we are all about close combat, and this really sort of helps us. However, I don't think it applies to Creeping Scourge that well. I think we're better off suited to our resilience and being slow, but you know, putting out the hurt when we do eventually get into combat. But we'll touch on that later on. Okay, next up we have Flaming Ichor. For every 5 models of the unit, one model may attack during a shooting phase using this profile, and it counts as a flame type weapon. Hey, and it's range 12, strength user, AP5, assault 1, blast 3 inches, soul blaze, and crawling fire. Okay, so if you've got a blob of 20 guys, only 4 of them are going to get to use this. And I don't think it's really that worth it. I mean, the AP, we're not really a shooting army. We don't really want to be a shooting army. And if it was AP 3, or if it had a good, or even AP 4, it'd probably be quite good, quite all right. Because of the AP 5 and the points cost being considerably expensive, we're talking at 3 points a model for the whole squad, even though one in every 5 is going to get to use it. I don't think it's worth it personally. Okay, we have Spine Volley, and all models in the unit may attack during the shooting phase using the following weapon profile. Range 12, Strength User -1, AP 5, Assault 2. So in the first 2 turns, if you're in range, this is going to be a 2-shot bolter essentially. Because, if you put it on lesser demons, a unit of lessers, they're going to be Strength 5, Toughness 5, so it'll be User -1, Strength 4, AP 5, Assault 2. Hey, it's not too bad, but you have to think you're using up a Ammnation slot for Spine Volley that you could be taking on something better in combat. Stick to combat, don't try and shoot. We're just not a shooting army. We don't even have any good shooting powers. So personally, not the one for me. Then we have Bone Shard Harpoon. And this one, all units may shoot in the shooting phase. Strength, range 12, strength user, AP 4, Assault 1, pinning. Hey, it's much better than the others. However, it's still, you're taking this instead of something else that could really help you in combat. And you're not going to outshoot any Marine player. You're definitely not going to outshoot a Custodes player, and you're definitely not going to outshoot a Mechanicum player, or Militia or Solo Auxiliary. So stick to combat. Pick a theme around your army and stick to that theme. Don't try and mix it up a little by having some shooting attacks. Then we have Ephemeral Terror. Hey, models in Ammnation do not suffer the penalty of the initiative for charging enemies through difficult terrain, but fight their normal initiative in the ensuing combat. Yeah, a really strong one, but with some of the units, they only get to pick from 2 Ammnations. If you're going for an Etheric Dominion, then they have to take, if there are multiple unit, i.e. there's multiple models in that unit, they have to take the one specific to their Etheric Dominion, so that only leaves them with 1 extra Ammnation. And realistically, you want to be going for Rending or Shred for that weight of attacks. You do not want to be going for worrying about assault grenades. But you might find that works. If that's what you like to do, then fair enough. Please let me know down in the comments if you found that has worked. For me, it's just I think it's a hit and miss. And finally, we have Shroud of Darkness. Models charging a unit with Ammnation do not gain bonus attacks from charging. So basically, your unit gets defensive grenades. I think it's really quite strong, especially for Creeping Scourge, where we're a slow army, so expect to get charged. But I don't think it sort of wins over from the other options we have, because we need to be aggressive and we need to be lethal. We need to be putting the hurt down in combat. Reducing the amount of attacks they're going to give us isn't really going to help us in the long run. We want to be able to kill them before they can kill us. But, again, a lot of people are going to have a higher initiative, or a lot of units can have a higher initiative of you, so if you can reduce the amount of attacks they put out, it's not so bad. It's just how you want to play your army. Okay, and that's it for Ammnations of Horror. Okay, finally we move on to the Creeping Scourge rules. Okay, and what do we get for our money? Well, all models in an attachment with the infantry, jump pack infantry, beast or cavalry unit gain the Feel No Pain 5+ special rule. Models with a monstrous creature, flying monstrous creature, gargantuan creature or gargantuan flying creature unit type instead gain the It Will Not Die special rule. Okay, these are 2 very, very strong options. 5+ Feel No Pain is excellent. It means that you essentially get a reroll of your invuln save most of the time. A lot of and your opponent needs to bring a lot of instant death or high strength weaponry to negate that extra save. Hey, if you keep yourself within 6 inches of a portal, you've got a rerollable invuln save followed by a Feel No Pain. You are going nowhere fast. The enemy or your opponent is going to have to put a lot of firepower to force the issue and remove you off objectives, etc. Hey, all units included as part of this attachment roll additional d6 when making run moves or sweeping advances and use the lowest rolled dice to determine the distance moved. So, like I said before, we're not moving anywhere fast, and this is shown here completely. When we run, we've got to roll 2d6 and pick the lowest, so we ain't going to run very fast. And then if we do get to sweep advance, then we roll 2d6 and pick the lowest. So that being said, I have actually managed to run down 2 units completely in my time playing Demons. So even though we've had this rule in play, it's not actually affected me that much. Okay, so any unit in this detachment may take Miasma of Rot Ammnation. If the unit consists of multiple models, then all models in that unit must take this upgrade. What it's saying there is if the unit consists of multiple models, like lessers, like demon beasts, like swarms, they all have to take Miasma of Rot, which is not necessarily a bad thing. -1 toughness everywhere. And if you want to be fluffy, put it on everything. If you want to save points and you want to sort of optimize your lists so you're not wasting points where you could be taking extra models, so that you don't get completely wiped off the board turn 1, don't put it on your Demon Lord, don't put it on your Demon Chosen, because chances are they're going to be accompanied by a unit that has to take it anyway. So therefore they're going to give out the -1 toughness, the Miasma of Rot, and that frees up points for you to spend elsewhere. Okay, so we have 3 Warlord traits here, and you roll a d6. On a 1 to 2, we'll get Blightwalker. This Warlord and all friendly units with the Demon of Ruinstorm special rule within 6 inches are considered to always roll 6 when called upon to take difficult terrain tests and dangerous terrain tests. Yep, it's not great, not terrible. It is what it is. I personally don't tend to rate it, and if I got this one, I'd probably forget about it half the time. Then we have 3 to 4 Monolith of Rot. The Warlord may reroll all failed, it will feel no pain, or it will not die tests. This one is situational, but a good, especially if you're, if a reroll to it will not die is not bad. It gives you a chance to, it gives you 2 chances of getting a 5 or a 6 to get that wound back. And, that could be quite strong. And then we have 5 to 6, Pestilent Cloud. All units with 3 inches of the Warlord at the end of any fight subphase that do not have the Demon of Ruinstorm special rule suffer D6 Strength 2 AP dash hits. These hits and any casualties caused do not count for combat resolution. Yeah, this last one is terrible. Realistically, do you really care if you're giving your opponent 6 Strength 2 AP minus AP nothing hits? You're wounding on 6s. You're probably not going to kill anything with it. It's terrible. I don't know what else to say. I'd rather take Monolith of Rot or even Blightwalker over this for the third one all day long. Hey, in addition, an army whose primary detachment has this dominion may choose to replace all other primary objectives in any mission with the following primary objective. Their opponent's objectives remain unchanged as the secondary objectives in play. So you can completely ignore the mission parameters and just play this one objective yourself. Okay, and it is Torment Without End. At the end of the game, after the final turn has been played, the Demons of the Ruinstorm play against 2 victory points for every table quarter that has a Warp Rift marker in it. No enemy units within 6 inches of that Warp Rift marker. At least one friendly Demon of the Ruinstorm unit within 6 inches of that Warp Rift marker. Hey, this one's situational. If you're playing objectives, your opponent's going to win on sheer victory points. And it means you need to play really defensive, which is not how demons play. Even Creeping Scourge needs to be up front, getting stuck in with the enemy. You don't want to be sat around a portal, because realistically it's only going to give you potentially six victory points, which is not great if your opponent's got all 6 objective markers and is on 30 victory points, for example. And it can happen. So I tend not to use this one. I tend just to play the mission at hand. But I leave that entirely up to you. Next up, we have the units that I think work best in a Creeping Scourge army. And so first off, we're going to start with our Creeping Scourge specific special character, and that is Korvax's Utterblight, Unbound, Demon of the Ruinstorm. Okay, so how many points does he cost? Well, he costs a whopping 425 points, so he's verging on Primarch level points. But what do you get for that? Well, he's Weapon Skill 6, he's Ballistic Skill 3, he's Strength 7, he's Toughness 8, he's got 8 wounds, he's only Initiative 3, he has 5 attacks, with Leadership 10, and a 4+ Armor save. Okay, and with that, he has 3 Ammnations of Horror, which are already tied in. Okay, so he has Shroud of Darkness, Miasma of Rot, and Crushing Claws. So he's got Rending, Defensive Grenades, and he's got -1 Toughness, which is not so bad. I don't think personally he needs Crushing Claws, as he's Strength 7. So, he's got Miasma of Rot. So even if he come up against a a land raider and armor value 14. It becomes armor value 13, and his strength 7 means he's going to wound it on 6s anyway. He's going to glance it on 6s anyway. So it's not really a massive issue that he's got crushing claws, especially as he's a monstrous creature, so he's hitting on AP2 anyway. Okay, the defensive grenades are nice, and Masmor is always fun to use. Okay, so what other rules does he have? Lord of Decay. Okay, and this means that he can only be taken in a creeping scourge etheric dominion. He must be the army's warlord, and he uses the Pestilent Cloud warlord trait from the creeping scourge etheric dominion warlord trait table. So he uses the terrible one. He uses the one where you tough a D6 strength 2 AP dash hits. Not great, but so far he's not too bad. He's then a Psyker, so he has 2 levels of mastery and may generate powers from the biomancy table. Hey, this is good, the chances of getting Iron Arm, endurance, there's 2 chances of that. He can get warp speed, and he can be a real contender in combat. He's got Gaping Maw. When fighting against infantry models, any to hit rolls of 5 and 6 have the instant death special rule, and they must be rolled for separately. So he's got some instant death capability. Okay, in the first 2 turns he'll be strength 8, toughness 9. So he's got, in the first 2 turns, if you are lucky enough to get him in combat, he's got that instant death capability from being strength 8 against most things in the game, toughness 4 wise. Then he's got Notsome Tide of Flesh. Okay, and he inflicts D3 Hammer of Wraths when charging. He ignores all dangerous terrain and difficult terrain, and counts as being armed with assault grenades when charging. In addition, if he explodes, you place a massive blast 7-inch template and all models under it that don't possess Daemons or Ruinstorm suffer a single poison 4+ AP4 hit. Yeah, so he blows up like a vehicle. Okay, so overall, I actually really like him. I think he's fluffy. I think for 425 points, you can't really go wrong. He does, he does the work. Toughness 8, toughness 9 on the first 2 turns with 8 wounds, and a turn of warrior. Your opponent's going to have to put a lot of firepower to take him down. The only thing that I've come across that's really sort of hurt him massively is poison weapons, because he's not immune to poison, and they've sort of sheer weight of dice. He's only got a 4+ save, and he was just brought down entirely, and there was nothing I could do about it. But apart from that, I think he's great. I use him a lot. And I've seen other Creeping Scourge players like to use callbacks a lot because it's fluffy. He's a nurgle specific demon prince. Next up for our HQ selections, we have the Ruinstorm Demon Lord. And I don't just think he's great for a Creeping Scourge dominion, etheric dominion. He's good for all demon etheric dominions. He is a powerhouse. He is exactly what you want from a warlord and a HQ choice. So let's look at his stats. He's got weapon skill 6, he's ballistic skill 5, he's strength 8, he's toughness 6, he's got 6 wounds, initiative 4, attacks 5, he's got leadership 10, and a 4+ save. Okay, and that is him bare bones. Okay, he's got a Lord of Chaos rule, and he must always be the army's warlord. He's got the Guardian Demon. When a unit includes 1 or more models with a special rule, suffers hits during the shooting phase, those hits must be allocated to models with this special rule first before any other model, regardless of position line of sight. So that's to do with his bodyguard that he can take, and he can take a bodyguard of up to 3 demon brutes. Okay, Vanguard of Hell. On the first turn of the game, if a unit composed entirely of models with this special rule, or rather I should say is composed of models with this special rule, okay, then they can come in from turn 1 and they don't need to roll for it, which is really strong. However, they can also choose to come in from turn 2 and turn 3. Okay, it means you can pick when your warlord arrives. Okay, and flying monstrous creature. Okay, and it's just saying that he can become a flying monstrous creature, and he can enter the game either swooping or zooming. Again, really strong. Okay, so how I like to run him. Before that, actually, I should probably state his other rules. Okay, so he's got the all the rules that a normal Demon Ruinstorm have, and then in terms of Creeping Scourge, he'll have it will not die, which is nice. Yeah, he's got Eternal Warrior, which means you need to slog through all those 6 wounds in order to kill him. He's got Hammer of Wrath. Okay, and then obviously he can take a detachment of brutes as a sort of bodyguard, which is really good because they are strength 6, toughness 6 on their own with 3 wounds a pop. So you need instant death weapons to get rid of them. as for the first 2 turns they're strength 7, toughness 7, and they're not monstrous creatures, so they will have feel no pain. So they are good in themselves. But we'll talk about that when we get to the elites. Yeah, so the Chaos Lord, I would say personally, I would give him War Gear wise, or rather Ammnations of Horror wise, I would probably give him Miasma of Rot, up to 3 levels of Psychic Mastery. You can go 6 if you want to be you want to go full neckbeard and have a full table, although that's sort of frowned upon, so I wouldn't personally do it. I have done it in the past. It wasn't very nice, so I sort of decided I wouldn't do that again. You can give him Shred, so that when he does come up against other HQ choices such as Praetors or even even Primarchs, this guy should stand toe to toe with some Primarchs, being that he's Strength 8 base and he's AP 2 because he's a monstrous creature. All in all, a really good investment, and he's only 200 points to begin with, so you could run him bare bones with some brutes and he would still do the business. Next up we have the Ruinstorm Demon Chosen. Okay, so these guys are essentially heralds, or what those of you who used to play demons back in 7th edition and 6th edition would know as a herald. So in Creeping Scourge they'd be heralds of nurgle. Okay, and let's look at their stats. Weapon skill 5, ballistic skill 4, strength 5, toughness 4, wounds 3, initiative 4, attacks 3, leadership 10 with a 4+ save. Okay, and then they have all the normal rules that Demons of Ruinstorm awards them. They can take up to 3 options from the Ammnations of Horror list. Probably should have stated before, the Demon Lord can also take 3 options. Okay, and then they get the Shepherd of Malign Intent special rule. And this essentially means that they can be given preferred enemy, and it can be preferred enemy for a specific sort of type of unit. So it can be infantry, jetbike, and cavalry, or monstrous creatures and flying monstrous creatures. I tend to take 2 chosen in most of my armies. I stick him in my unit of lessers, giving the whole unit preferred enemy, and I go for infantry as that's what I want to be hunting. And you can't give it to vehicles. You don't tend to see much bikes, jetbike, or cavalry flying around, and you definitely don't see that many monstrous creatures outside of another demon list. So infantry is probably your best bet. With the 3 emanations then, I like to take Warp Scaled Hide for a 3+ armor save on this guy, because realistically he's going to be people will be issuing challenges to him because they want to try and kill him to get rid of that preferred enemy. So I will get usually I give him Warp Scaled Hide for a 3+ armor save. I'll give him 2 levels of mastery, and then give him Biomancy just so a chance he might get endurance, and then make my lessers even more powerful. And my third one, I go for Crushing Claws so he can get his rending, because rending is what we want. I don't usually tend to give him Miasma of Rot because, like I said, I put him in a unit of demons, lesser demons, and they have to have Miasma of Rot anyway. But that's the Ruinstorm Demon Chosen. Really good, 50 points base, so you could run them stock and just use them as complete support characters, and it would free up points elsewhere. But a really good HQ choice if you're looking for support for your troops. Next up we have what I would take in the elites, and there's only one elite choice for Demons of Ruinstorm, and that is Ruinstorm Demon Brutes. Okay, so what do they offer us? Well, they're weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 4, strength 6, toughness 6, 3 wounds, initiative 4, attacks 3, leadership 8, and a 4+ save. And you get 3 of them for 150 points. Now they work really well as a bodyguard for your Demon Lord, and they work really well on their own because they have the Vanguard of Hell special rule we've already spoke about, where they can come in from first turn just automatically, and they can be chosen. Okay, they can only take up to 2 Ammnations of Horror, and because they are more than one model, in a Creeping Scourge Dominion, we'd have to take Miasma of Rot, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Like I said, -1 toughness, or essentially rad grenades is not bad. And then for the second one, I like to take Crushing Claws because they're strength 7, toughness 7 in the first 2 turns, then strength 6, toughness 6. But you really want that rending because you want that AP2, because the sort of things they're going to be facing are going to be the bigger stuff. But they're durable enough. It takes a while for them to go down, be it from their high toughness, because the fact that they're toughness 6 until turn 5 and 6, they're most of the game they're going to have their feel no pain, which makes them really hard to deal with. All round a good choice. Okay, next up we have the troop choices we can take in our Creeping Scourge army. And the first ones we have, and the ones that I think are the cornerstone of any Creeping Scourge force, are the lesser demons. Okay, these guys are amazing. Probably one of the best troop choices you can take in the entire game of Horus Heresy. Hey, and what do we get? So if you can take this unit that starts off as 5 and can be upgraded to a maximum of 20. Hey, and it costs 60 points bare bones for 5 guys. And we get weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 4, strength 4, toughness 4, 2 wounds, initiative 4, attacks 2, leadership 7, and a 4+ save. So we've almost got a marine stat line across the board, less the power armor. Hey, we can take up to 3 Ammnations of Horror. Hey, and we have all the normal demon rules. Hey, the ones I like to use mostly, so we have to take Miasma of Rot as it's a multiple model unit. Hey, and then I think the best ones to take for the other two are Flensing Talons and Crushing Claws. So we're getting Rending and Shred. Because, like I said before, we want weight of dice. So on the charge, 20 of these guys will push out 60 attacks. You put a Chosen in there, you're re-rolling ones for preferred enemy. You give yourself Flensing Talons, you're re-rolling wounds for Shred. So you're fishing for 6s even more. Honestly, this unit is ridiculously good, and I think combined with the fact we have Feel No Pain, so we have a 5+ invuln followed by a 5+ Feel No Pain on 2 wounds on a unit that is toughness 5 in the first 2 turns, yeah, it is the backbone of your army, and I think at least you should be running at least 40 of these guys per game, per 3,000 points, if not more, if you've got more models. And I think they're represented brilliantly by Plague Bearers. But I didn't want just Plague Bearers, so I threw in some Plague Monks on 32mm bases. The Plague Monks from the Skaven AOS range, just to mix it up a little. And I think it looks really well. Okay, next up we have Demon Beasts, and these are my second favourite troop choice. So you get 75 points and you get 3 Demon Ruinstorm Beasts, and you can upgrade to a unit of 10. And their stat line is very similar to the Lessers, except they are toughness 5, strength 5. Again, they have 2 wounds, they're initiative 4 with 2 attacks, leadership 7, 4+ save, and again, they're weapon skill and ballistic skill 4. But they are a unit type of beasts. So they're moving 12 inches a turn, and they're ignoring difficult terrain. Okay, and they can only take 2 options from the Ammnations of Horror list. So again, we've got to take Miasma of Rot, and then the other one, I think, what's coming, Crushing Claws. We want Rending. We want to be able to. This unit wants to be getting into combat nice and quick, so it needs to be able to put out the hurt, and we need to be reliably getting AP2 at least at some point. The particular point for Demon Beasts, I like to run them is at least a blob of 10, just so they can get out into the enemy's lines and distract them enough for my Lessers to sort of trundle on up behind and do the real damage. Hey, and I like to reuse them, use the models of the Putrid Blight Kings from AOS. I think they represent just sort of the nurgle. They're not quite beasts, not quite human. The idea is that they would have crude weapons and they would just charge towards you as fast as they could. Some people think that the Plague Toads work, but I think Plague Toads are a little bit too big for what they're what the Demon Beast is supposed to sort of emblem. Okay, and then finally we have Ruinstorm Demon Swarms. Okay, 60 points of free models, so only 15 points cheaper than the Beasts, and you don't get an awful lot for that. You can only take 1 Ammnation of Horror, which has to be Miasma of Rot due to the wording that we've got. It'll be more than multiple models. You get 3 models, and they have Weapon Skill 2, Ballistic Skill 2, Strength 2, Toughness 3, Wounds 4, Initiative 3, Attacks D6, Leadership 7, and 4+ save. Okay, I have these, but I don't tend to use them. They would just sit at the back and hold objectives, but you're really wasting your points. But in terms of what I would use them for, or what models I would use to represent them, nurglings all day long. How could it be any other thing? In fact, I don't think any other model range has. These can be taken in other etheric dominions, but I don't know what you would use to represent, say, corn swarms. If you've thought of something, let me know in the comments, because I'd be interested to see. But I've never seen swarms taken on a tabletop pot when I've used them, and they've never really done anything. They've never really, they've really done anything in my games. They sort of just sit there and maybe win me points because people tend to ignore them, which is, I suppose that's probably all they're good for. And that's it for the troops. Up next, we have fast attack choices. Okay, and I like to use both fast attack choices. So first one, we have Ruinstorm Demon Cavalry. Okay, and it's weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 4, strength 4, toughness 4, wounds 2, initiative 4, attacks 3, leadership 7, and a 4+ save. Okay, so we're looking at lesser stats here, but with an extra attack, and you get 5 of them for 125 points. Okay, that's not too bad, and they have the cavalry special rules. They are moving the 12 inches, so it's another source of 12-inch moving units that you can push up first turn to try and block your enemy while you wait for your lessers. And I like to represent these with with plague toads from Forge World. They are slightly big, but I think, what else could you use toads for? The idea, I find it quite funny, the idea that toads would be that fast, that they would be given the cavalry special rule. They can take up to 2 Ammnations of Horror, and again, they've got to take Miasma of Rot, so the second one again, Crushing Claws. Give them rending, get them up there. They've got 3 attacks a pop, so at 5, that's 18 attacks. 18 attacks on the charge. Wrong, that's just 18 attacks normal. They'll have 20 attacks on the charge. And, weapon skill 4 against Marines, you're going to get some rending shots off. Or rending hits off, sorry. And, they're a good sort of blocking unit while you wait for your lessers to get up. Okay, then we have the controversial second fast attack shot, which is Demon Strikes. Now, people I've spoken to, some people love them, some people hate them. Some people think they're useless, some people think they're amazing. But I'll let you make the decision. So they are weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 4, strength 7, toughness 6, wounds 5, initiative 4, attacks 4, leadership 10 with a 4+ save. And they cost 160 points. But what do you get for that? Well, it's a flying monstrous creature, so it can zoom and it can swoop. Okay, it's got the normal demon rules, and it can take 2 options from the Ammnations of Horror. Okay, so I think that when I use them, I like to place them in flying mode. Is it swooping or zooming or gliding? I think we'll go with swooping. I think that's when basically they count as flyers, and I give them a rift barb, and they just fly around pissing off the vehicles in your opponent's back line. And that's primarily what I like to use them for. And then at the end of the game, I mean, they do have Vector Strike as well, which is pretty decent. But I think the price tag on them is what puts them people off the most. But I'll let you, obviously, you make your own decisions. It's your army. I have 2 of them. I actually have 5 of them because I just use the Plague Drone models from the normal nurgle range. But I would never field 5. I mean, you can't field 5 because they only come as 1 model and you only have 3 fast attack choices. But I tend to run 2 at most, and then they would just sit around, fly around annoying backline vehicles. Next up we have the heavy support choices, and again there's 2 options here, and both of them I think are viable in Creeping Scourge. In fact, I think both of them are viable in all the etheric dominions of the Demons of Ruinstorm. Okay, and the first one we have is Greater Ruinstorm Demon Beast, and they cost 100 points per model, and you can take up to 3 of them in a unit. So you could have 3 greater demon beasts. And what's their stat line? Well, they're weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 4, strength 8, toughness 6, 4 wounds, initiative 3, attacks 3, leadership 7 with a 4+ save. So right there, that's a hefty stat line. They're also monstrous creatures, so they will not die because of Creeping Scourge. Hey, they have the normal demon or the Ruinstorm list of rules. Hey, and they can take up to 3 Ammnations of Horror. Now, if you take multiple units, they are going to have to take Miasma of Rot, but you still get 2 extra options. So I wouldn't say Crushing Claws was good on this one, but it's strength 8, and you've got -1 toughness or -1 armor value. You're not going to need that rending. You're a monstrous creature. So I would take probably Flensing Talons, and then I like to take the Ammnation that allows you to fire the template weapon. So to represent basically my models that I like to use, which are the Demon Prince of Nurgle and Mammon Transfigured, as my Greater Ruinstorm Demon Beasts, and then the idea that he's got a giant hose coming out of his arm, the Flame template, and basically cover them in sticky ooze. Okay, they're really I find they're really good. They definitely stand the test of time. They're just people tend to either ignore them or deal with them and struggle to deal with them due to the amount of wounds they have and their high toughness value. Yeah, so I think a great heavy support choice. The next one is the Ruinstorm Demoth Bearmoth. Now this guy is an absolute beast. He is for all intents and purposes, a gargantuan creature without stomp. But we'll get into his rules now. So he's weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 4, strength 8, toughness 7 with 10 wounds. He's initiative 2 with attacks 5, leadership 7 and a 4+ save. He has the normal Daemons of Ruinstorm rules. Okay, he's got Creeping Scourge because if you're playing Creeping Scourge, so he has it will not die. Okay, and he can select up to 3 options from the Ammnations of Horror list. Hey, he also has the Unstoppable rule. So any attack that normally inflicts instant death or says that the target model is removed from play instead inflicts D3 wounds on the model with this special rule. In addition, attacks made with a sniper or poison special rules only cause a wound roll on a roll of a 6 unless the attacker's strength would cause a wound on a lower result. Okay, this is really strong. Like I said, he is a pseudo gargantuan creature. He doesn't get stomp, but you're not killing him. You're not gonna instant death him. Even an instant death weapon, unless it's a D weapon, is only going to cause D3 wounds, which is really good. The only downside I find with this guy is I usually, when I take him, he can be quite lackluster in combat. He's got 5 attacks, but he's hitting on 4s. So at best, you're going to get, law of averages, you're going to get maybe 3 hits if you're lucky, and then he wounds on 2s, and then he's AP2. But what you're sending him into is usually Terminators and the like. So you're trying to kill them, but then they hit you back with strength 10 hits. And usually I find he's just a good distraction card effects. He's good at distracting the enemy while my little guys get in and do the business. But I'm sure other people have ways of running him that I've not seen. I usually like to run him with Miasma of Rot, a Rift Barb, and Flensing Talons. Flensing Talons for that shred, so he's reliably, when he does hit with his 3 attacks, they're going to reliably wound, because I roll 1s all the time, and I don't want to see that, not when I'm wounding on 2s. To roll 3 1s is really disheartening. Hey, but that's the heavy support slot. Oh, by the way, yeah, he costs 300 points. So, it's a points investment, but I think, he is worth his points in terms of his sort of presence on the table. But yeah, that is the heavy support slots. So now we're going to move into the Lord of War. Finally, and by no means least, we move into the Lord of War slot. And in the real Lord of War slot, we have the Ruinstorm Archdemon. Now, the Ruinstorm Archdemon is sort of frowned upon in most gaming communities I've come across. They sort of think he's a bit too much for 3,000 point games. I disagree, but some people would say that's probably because I'm a demon player, and therefore I would disagree. But I'll explain why in a minute. So, here's what we get. So, he's 600 points base. 600 points before any upgrades. And what do we get for that? Well, he's a gargantuan creature. He's got weapon skill 6, ballistic skill 5, strength 9, toughness 8, 10 wounds, initiative 3, 6 attacks, leadership 10 with a 4+ save. Okay, and he can take 3 options from his own Ammnations of Horror table. And we'll get into that in a second. He doesn't have any weapons as such. He's just he comes as he comes, but he is a gargantuan creature, so he does get feel no pain. He is immune to poison weapons, and if you do instant death him, it's just D3 wounds. Looking at his Ammnations of Horror table, then he gets Lord of Chaos. A model of this option gains a 4+ invulnerable save against shooting attacks and a 3+ invulnerable save while locked in combat. Okay, we have Reaper of Souls. A model with this option may choose to sacrifice its normal attacks in close combat, make a number of attacks equal to the number of models in any one unit locked in combat. It's locked in combat with. These attacks are resolved at half, rounded down, its current strength and AP2. Yeah, both of these are pretty good. I think Lord of Chaos is probably an auto take for the fact that you get a 3+ invulnerable save in combat, and it's really strong. 4+ invulnerable save, as he is going to be an absolute bullet magnet. Okay, next we have Breaker of Titans. A model with this option may choose to sacrifice its normal attacks in close combat to make a number of attacks that are equal to half, rounded down its current attacks score, but at strength D, AP2. Yeah, another excellent one. The ability to get a D strength Titan, or Titan equivalent, gargantuan creature, in case you come across against other knights and you really want to put the hurt on. Hey, Font of the Warp. A model of this option gains a Psycho special rule and Martial level 4 and generates psychic powers from any discipline in the Horus Heresy Age of Darkness rulebook except Santic or Malefic Demonology. In addition, the controlling player does not add the model's mastery level to the total of warp charges, but instead adds his wounds. Hey, that's really strong, but it's a really expensive upgrade, and you can get decent psychic powers elsewhere. Remember that it's a double-edged sword with psychic powers, especially with Book 8 and the Psychana. Making him a Psyker can really hamper him, especially against certain builds that other people will take, especially if they know they're coming across demons. Say we've got Wound in Reality is the next one. A model this option that loses its last wound explodes as though it had the catastrophic damage special rule. Hey, that's situational at best. I don't think I would take it because, if he dies around your lesser demons, you're just sending your lesser demons to the grave unnecessarily. So I wouldn't pay points for that. Okay, next one is Beyond Death. A model this option loses its last wound is not immediately removed from play. Instead, the control player on a D6 on a 4+. The model instead placed on ongoing reserves D6 wounds remaining on 3 or less, it is removed from play as a casualty. This effort may be only triggered once per model in any game. Okay, so you've only got 3 Ammnations to pick from. I don't think I would take this one. It's a 50-50 chance of you coming back with D6 wounds. I don't think it's worth the points investment, personally, but it could be fun to see, I imagine, and I imagine it would be really annoying to your opponent if he spent all that firepower killing this guy for him to then go back into ongoing reserves and come out of a portal the next turn with 6 wounds remaining. Okay, so we've got Torrent of Unreality. A model of this option may attack during the shooting phase using the following profile. Okay, so it's a Hellstorm template, Strength 6, AP 4, Assault 1, Soul Blaze. Okay, naff. I just wouldn't take it. Not worth the points. Yeah, it's Strength 6. It's going to be winning most things on 2s, but it's not 8. It's got no AP, so I definitely wouldn't take it. Okay, then we've got Warp Burst. A model of this option may attack during the shooting phase using the following profile. Range 24, Strength 8, AP 4, Assault 1, Massive Blast. Again, yeah, Strength 8 is nice, but that AP 4 is really lacking. Again, that's a hard pass for myself. I wouldn't take this. I would take a more combat-orientated demon, as I imagine most demon players would. Then finally, we have Rend Time and Space. A model of this option may essentially place extra warp rift markers down throughout the game. Okay, I don't think it's that good. It could work really well with our secondary objective, but then realistically it's only giving you an extra 2 points. Again, another miss from me. And then we've got finally Warp Forged Plate. A model that has this option gains a 2+ armor save. Okay, this would be great if it wasn't so expensive. I think it's 50 points just to give them a 2+ armor save. And majority of things they're going to shoot you find your archdemon getting shot with are going to be things like lance cannons, things like melters. Okay, so the 2+ armor save just is going to be a waste of points. It's just not going to be worth it. I think I'd rather just stick with Lord of Chaos, get my 4+ invuln, my 3+ invuln in a combat, and go from there. Okay, I personally also like to take Breaker of Titans for some D goodness. I don't tend necessarily to run them with Font of the Warp, as again it means your 700 odd point model can get absolutely gibbed by some Sisters of Silence, so I avoid it like the plague. Hey, but that is my my review of the Archdemon. Hey, the reason I don't think he's so strong is because people say that he's really broken and he's just like, I don't want to face him. And I get it, they're scared. It's a massive model. It's got a really high wounds count. It's really hard to kill. But he has to get to combat. He's not a knight. He doesn't have any shooting capability. He's definitely not a Warhound Titan, even though he has a similar price cost. He's weapon skill 6, so most Primarchs are going to be hitting on freeze. He can't sit at the back of the board and shoot D strength turbo laser destructors at you. I would much rather face a Archdemon as an opponent than I would a Warhound with double D. But that's just me. That's why I don't think he's as overpowered as everyone makes out, because his only thing is in combat. That's his only trick. He needs to be in combat to wreck face. If you've got a suitably gunned up army, you will be able to deal with him. And it's as simple as that. The model I like to use for him is, of course, Scabifax the Bloated, the Forge World Great Unclean one. I can't imagine any other model you'd want to use, being that he is in fact a greater demon of Nurgle, and it fits perfectly. I've seen people want to suggest other things. Some people like to use a Glockin, which is fine, but I like to use a Glockin as a Behemoth. So that about wraps it up for my review of the Creeping Scourge Demon of the Ruinstorm. I really do think they are a sort of force to be reckoned with, although don't take my word for it, as I seem to lose all the time. But I really like it. Nurgle's my favourite god, and I really love that we've now got a demon army that represents Nurgle in its finest in battles of the Horus heresy. Again, like I said, I don't know the other etheric dominions too well. I'm hoping that as I branch out, I can sort of get to know them. And I'm hoping that I face against more etheric dominions. As it stands, I've only faced against another Nurgle army so far. I've not faced any other demons, which is a shame because I do like to see more and more demons float around on the tabletop. Okay, if you've got any questions, leave them down in the comments below. I'm happy to happily answer anything you have to ask. And I hope this has been a factual video for you all. Again, not many people tend to see demons floating around in their local meta, so it's good to have content in which people have a better understanding of how they work. Hey, if you liked the video, please like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like the video, please hit the dislike button. Let us know where we went wrong. These are all sort of very amateurly edited because myself, I'm just doing this on a tablet. Because we're doing it out of our own time. We're not looking to make any money of this. As we're always saying, it's just because we want to get more content, heresy-based content out there for you guys and girls. Hey, so that's been me. That's been me, Sam. This has been Demons of the Ruinstorm, Creeping Scourge, and I'll see you in the next video.